With me is the CEO of Tonix Pharmaceuticals, Seth Lederman, to share the results of an encouraging, I think we could say, new study on your long COVID treatment. So give me kind of the summary, and then we'll dig a little deeper into what this treatment is.
Thank you, Jane. Yes, we just reported top-line results from a phase 2 study of our experimental medicine in treating long COVID. And we were encouraged by the robust effect size of our drug in improving the symptom of fatigue in long COVID. And fatigue is considered by many people the signature symptom of long COVID.
Yes, I've heard people, say they have long COVID. They still are dealing with, and as you mentioned, a lot of just fatigue that they can't explain. And, you were telling me that they're not infected anymore with COVID, but something happened in their system when they did have it that led to this long COVID. What did you learn about long COVID during this study?
Thank you. Well, I think we learned a lot about long COVID and a lot about our drug. But let me go back to long COVID. You may remember that before I joined the biotechnology industry, I was a professor at Columbia Medical School and in the division of rheumatology, and I practiced rheumatology for many years. And for me and people with my training, when we saw long COVID, we recognized that there was a lot of overlap with fibromyalgia and with another related condition called chronic fatigue syndrome. So that overlap has been recognized by many other people. For example, it's featured prominently in the National Research Action Plan on Long COVID released by the Department of Health and Human Services. So we believe that when some people are recovering from COVID, that they basically come down with a case of what looks pretty much like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. And both fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome have been previously identified as conditions that can happen after someone recovers from a viral infection. Now, that could be herpes or shingles or a bad case of flu or other things. But the fact that everyone, or not everyone, so many people got COVID at the same time has really led to an epidemic of long COVID following the epidemic of COVID.
Yeah. So your treatment, is it a shot? Is it inhaler? Explain to me, and how does it work?
Thank you. Our treatment is a tablet that's taken under the tongue every night at bedtime. And it contains a medicine called cyclobenzaprine. And the medicine is released rapidly from the tablet into the bloodstream. And it goes pretty quickly into the brain, and it improves sleep quality. Now, we're already in phase 3. We have one positive phase 3 in fibromyalgia, and we're wrapping up a second phase 3 study now in fibromyalgia. So we already have pretty good evidence that it improves sleep quality. And once sleep quality is improved, then other symptoms improve. So in the case of fibromyalgia, we've seen that once sleep quality improves, there's a lag, and then there's improvement in the multi-site pain symptoms. In this study, we also saw the sleep quality improve, and then it was followed by a lag, and then we saw activity on improving fatigue, which came on strong towards the end of the study.
Yeah, very interesting. So what's next?
Well, we want to meet with FDA to talk about a program to develop the drug towards registration based on using the fatigue endpoint. We think that it should be a straightforward conversation because fatigue is such a prominent symptom in long COVID, and other companies also seem to be gravitating towards using this particular measurement of fatigue called the PROMIS fatigue scale as an endpoint in assessing long COVID. So, but we'll need to have that. We think that we'll be able to meet with FDA in what's called an end of phase 2 meeting in the first quarter of 2024.
Okay, so potentially if everything goes well, this might be on the market at the end of next year, or is that too
Well,
optimistic?
studies, we'll have to do a fairly long study. So the study would probably take a year, and typically you need two studies. So in the normal course of things, it would be, 3 or 4 years before the drug was approved.
Yeah.
However, long COVID is recognized somewhere close to being a national emergency. The Department of Health and Human Services recently opened a special office called the Office of Long COVID Research and Practice that's run by the Assistant Secretary of HHS. And generally speaking, that is to coordinate the long COVID research across the government. But the HHS estimates that between 7 and 23 million Americans are suffering from long COVID. And it's been published by an academic that fatigue is the dominant symptom that leads to disability. So I think that, I don't know how, but I suspect that in some way we should count on some kind of FDA or HHS, someone considering ways to expedite this development. Because it is affecting so many people. And with our data, which we think is quite promising, we think that hopefully patients won't have to wait that long. But of course, we have to go through the rigorous FDA procedure to get drug approval, because this is an experimental treatment. It's not approved for any indication, but we think it has promise.
Okay. Well, Seth, congratulations on the results so far. Look forward to updates. And I know you've been an important part of New to the Street, and this is our 500th show. So I just wanted to welcome you to our 500th show, because it's kind of a milestone for the company.
Dane, congratulations on your 500th show. And we have really enjoyed being part of New to the Street. We appreciate that you followed us. And best of luck for the future, and congratulations on what you've already achieved.
Thank you.